everybody, welcome to my new Sunday market breakdown. So we will start as usually on the DXY, the US dollar currency index of the Forex market. What can I see on the daily chart? I can see we are in a bullish uptrend. We are making a low, a high, a low, a new higher high. So we have this major bullish M that is keeping the market or preventing it to go to the downside. So it wants to go to the upside. So now what I see is we try to break this higher low wick and we didn't broke it and we went with massive buy orders back to the upside. So for me, that's a new action. So it triggered some liquidity for going to the upside because we couldn't close below this higher low wick. So then we made that push to the upside, and now we have that candle that also came back from this zone here where there were sellers sitting and went back to the downside. So for me, it's a little bit both. It's not that sure what we want to do because why is that? Is because we have a monthly zone that we got tapped here, a monthly selling zone, and we have here our weekly supply and demand zone aligning with new liquidity from the daily and the new action. So it doesn't know really what to do. So that's why it making here, okay, no liquidity, we want to the upside. We're coming too close to a selling point, we go to the downside. So if I go to the weekly, you can see on the weekly, I just count 2 out of 4 for the long. Because the daily is long, then we can look for that weekly for a long. So this is my bullish M that is still in play, bullish M. So what I can see on the weekly is we had the previous lower high, lower low. Now we broke it with this weekly candle close. This is for me just the same highs. So for me, it's a first break of the structure. So for me, normally the trend will be still bearish. Then the fib from this low till this high is still working for you, or this fib from this low till this high can work for you so that price can still go to the upside. And the supply and demand on this one acting here as support, resistance, support, resistance, support here, resistance, resistance, support. So it's a really nice supply and demand that can hold the price up back to this daily TP potentially or the weekly TP. We must be looking at this monthly zone because if I go to the monthly, it's a really important zone. You can see the potential shoulder 1, head, shoulder 2, and we can see we had a clear impulse, correction, as on the weekly. We had an impulse. This is a more corrective nature. And yeah, this can potentially play out for the dollar. We can see the impulses are there and the correction is there. So there is a high possibility that this can play out or have some short-term momentum, which we have already had on the daily chart. As you can see, we tapped it, went to the downside. And on the daily, we can see we came to the upside in 1, 2, 3, 4 days. And here we went down 1, 2, 3, and it's now staying here for the 4th day. So potentially a push to the upside or a push to the downside. For me, it's not that clear what the price will do there, but the trend is still bullish on the daily. As long as we didn't broke this higher low wick, we are still clear in an uptrend. So what I want to see then is just clear break and then that shoulder 1 here, head, shoulder 2 within that first leg, second leg, third leg, fourth leg, a bearish W pattern within a pattern. If I look to the 4-hour, we can see the 4-hour is also still bullish. So we have that shoulder 1 here, head, shoulder 2 that was made, and after that we received the bullish M. So we are in an uptrend also on the 4-hour. So we need to break this 4-hour higher low wick here then. So the first trade I'm looking at GBPJPY on a daily. What I can see on the daily is we tapped our bigger fib from this low till this high. We tapped the 61.80. So then we made a nice shoulder 1, head, shoulder 2, reversal pattern, inverse and shoulders that can possibly play out till the daily minus 27 here for around 4.25%. That's my target to the daily TP. If I go now over that, if I zoom in like this, yeah, I will delete it. If I go now over the weekly, what I can see on the weekly, we have a 3 out of 4. The trend is bullish. We have this low, high, low, high, low, new high. So we have this major bullish M that is in play. And we have a nice supply and demand zone acting here as resistance and here as support wicks. So for me, that's the supply and demand zone that can hold the price up. Candle close also bullish here. This one is closing bullish. So 2 out of 4. The fib from this low till this high can potentially play against you here. Some people will draw the fib from this high till this low. Then the fib can play for you if you tap a daily zone. So then it can play for you. But for me, it's for sure a 3 out of 4 with that supply and demand zone also there. Like that. Then daily was clear, inverted and shoulders. And on the 4 hour, what can we see? We missed that first trade, which was a deceleration. So this was the deceleration box here. First candle, second candle, third candle, fourth candle. We could be in a straight to the upside, and it would be running around, yeah, 2.2% already if we are in the trade, but I missed it. So then what I'm looking at the scale in, the first leg, second leg, third leg, fourth leg, going back till this previous higher low, and I round that off my entry to the upside, then it will be a little bit to the upside that I'm in because of the spreads. Sometimes I can be in a trade, and then we can go to the daily highs. But if the trade doesn't come back to our entry and we tap first the daily highs, then this trade would be invalid and we need to have a tap of this daily zone again to have a pattern reset. As you can see here, the daily highs are sitting here, so the sellers can kick in from that point, and then we have a A, B, C potential correction for taking new liquidity potentially. That's what I can see right now. Then the next one, EURNZD on the daily chart. What I can see on the daily chart is my shoulder one here, head, shoulder two, and if I look closer, first leg, second leg, third leg, fourth leg, a pattern within a pattern. For me, it's a small pattern, so I can just put my limit above on this shoulder one. At the fib completion, I'm setting this to have a nice risk reward to the daily TP, and my stop loss would be above this shoulder one wicks here. If I look on the 4 hour, this is my shoulder one highest wick, so I put 15 pips to the upside, and then it would be around 38.6 pips for 3.26% to the daily TP. You can see also clearly on the 4 hour, we had here a bearish W, so this can still hold the price down, this descending trend line. And we had here a clear impulse, and now it's coming more corrective. So that's the thing that is nice to see, that we are now coming corrective to the upside, that we have potentially the sprinter that is resting, and now it wants to take on that liquidity zone a new sprint to the downside potentially. If I go over the weekly for me is a 3 out of 4. For me, the trend is against us because we had here our high, our low, our new high. So this is the major bullish M between this low and this high. This is just one correction. You can see that it's moving a little bit more corrective to the downside. So at one point we will break out of that channel as we are doing here, and we can touch the being of correction potentially. That doesn't mean it will happen because the momentum is still going to the downside. You can see here impulse, correction, impulse, here correction, potential impulse here. This was more corrective, and then impulse, correction, impulse, and this can be then the correction back to the downside. But if I look to the major impulse, this is the bearish momentum that was kicking into the downside. So this was one leg to the downside, and it's still in break with a new low. So for me, these are the same lows. So we can expect a push back to the downside potentially. And what I can see right now is this candle close, this red one is closing because if I drew my horizontal blue line on that daily box, you can see this acting as clear resistance and it triggered some sellers. Here also we had nice sellers to the downside when we were above it as support. Here also some support liquidity week here also, and then we were closing below it. We had a major week going back to that horizontal line and we went impulsively to the downside. So for me, that's the supply and demand zone that can hold the price down. If I look further, here we had also some resistance. And if I look back here, also resistance here, also sellers. So this is a lot of years back in history, but we can relate to that the sellers are there. That's the supply and demand zone. Then the FIP from this low here to this high, we have a minus 27 FIP completion line in there. Is also working for us to push the price to the downside. And yeah, we have a 3 out of 4. Also the candle close, I will count that with me because we are at the supply and demand zone aligning with that FIP completion. So a 3 out of 4, that is a good trade to take, followed by the plan. The daily was clear, pattern in a pattern. I want to see the price going back to the daily shoulder one. And on the 4 hour, we can just take our limit, as I was saying here. And normally I will take 2.5% out, like here. This will be the TP target for my fully take partials, but normally in my old TP strategy, the daily TP is the major TP for banks and institutes where they like to take some profits. So yeah. Then the next one, GBPAUD. So on a daily, what I can see is a potential pattern in a pattern. So we have a shoulder one here, head, shoulder two within that first leg, second leg, third leg, fourth leg, pattern in a pattern. So we can go and reach the daily TP here, daily minus 27, which is aligning with that IC here, where the price can push back to the upside, where the banks and institutes like to take some profits from. And we had also here previous week that shoulder one here had shoulder two and a bearish W here, so it played out also really nicely. So this can play out also again potentially. And you can see my weekly zone is also aligning here. If I go to the weekly, you can see on that weekly, we have a potential shoulder one here, head, and then that bearish W, and it can come back to that bearish W where there is sitting an IC between all these two red candles. You have one small blue candle, which is working like a magnet, which is aligning with the daily pattern in a pattern. And if I look and I put it my blue box here, this is clear selling zone. When we are above it, we have buyers. When we are below it as resistance, as you can see here, resistance, support, potential resistance here. So this can play out also. We have that liquidity there sitting, and we can also see we are closing below this major supply and demand zone here. Like this. This was a potential same highs, same lows, and natural M impulse like this, same highs, same lows, and we didn't respect that. This can still be a false break potentially, but the nice thing to see is that we are closing below this previous resistance that acted here as always support, and now we are closing below it as a potential false break potentially, or we can come back and we can close back below it that of the end of the week. If we can come back and we close below that weekly box, then I can see a much further impulse to the downside, potentially to make that shoulder one here head shoulder two in the near future. So why I have 2 out of 4 for that short. So we have the candle close. This red candle here is the one that is working for us because it's a major bearish candle, and the supply and demand zone, which I was saying on that IC sitting here and holding the price potentially down. So 2 out of 4 for that short, which is okay to take. So my limit will be placed because it's a pattern in a pattern. And what we can see also is we have here also a first time break. So this is our daily previous structure. This was our previous low, high. We broke it here. We can now have the potential corrective pullback to touch this, to react on it, or we can go higher to grab liquidity from that pattern within a pattern, which is a thing that can play out. So we will not know what the market will do. We will just wait patiently. And this descending trend line is also holding the price here down. So this can also work for us. And on the 4 hour, the price is still now coming back correctively. As you can see, potential A, B, C, or fifth leg formation. We will see what will happen there. Then the next one, NZDUSD. I'm looking here for the inverse and shoulders on that IC here. So we have a first time break of this previous higher low, lower high, lower low. We had the first time break here. Then we triggered here some supply and demand zone where the sellers kicked in from with a bearish candle close here. So I expect that the price can come back because we didn't had that fresh liquidity, or we didn't take some liquidity at this IC, so I expect to pull back to that zone. And from there, I want to see a pattern. And on the weekly, we have a 3 out of 4. Why is that? Because we are still bullish. We had this previous high, low, new high, low, high. We have that bullish M. And yeah, the trend is here bearish because we made a new low, then the high, new low. So this is your bearish W here. So this is major bearish. But what I can see is that we can still have some room to touch this previous structure here, tap it as resistance here, which was here clear support. And what I can also see is that we grabbed here some liquidity from that monthly inversion and shoulders with a weekly nice bullish candle close. So the candle close is for us. The fib from this high till this low, minus 27 fib completion aligning with that bullish candle close, and then the supply and demand zone here working for you. If I go to the monthly, you can see this is your shoulder 1 head, then the impulse, shoulder 2, the price coming after that impulse more correctively back, and then we can have a nice impulse again, aligning also with here that buying zone here. So, and here if I look for a back resistance, support, buyers, resistance, resistance. So it's a clear monthly buying zone where the liquidity is at. The banks and institutes like to take there some buy orders. So, and on the 4 hour now, we are coming correctively back, impulse, correction, and that's nice to see that we can go to that zone and potentially we can have here a deceleration or a pattern. We will see what will happen there. Then the last one, EURCAD. This is a pullback trade, a first time break trade. You can see it in two ways. Some people will say, yeah, it is a potential pattern in a pattern. If you see this as one leg, so 1, 2, 3, 4, then it's your bearish W. Then you have here the fake out, new action from that wick here, and aligning with that a major selling zone. This is the way you can see it, and the shoulder 1 here, head, shoulder 2, which can give you a pattern in a pattern, but I don't see it like that. I see it just as a first time break because this was your previous high, low, we made that break here, and now what I want to see with first time break is a clear selling zone where the sellers can kick in from. And if I put my horizontal line here and my daily zone, you can see these were clear sellers. This triggered some big sellers. Here again, massive daily candle to the downside. Here also sellers, and here a lot of false breaks in that zone to take some retail traders out. And you can see also here sellers impulse to the downside, and potentially again here to the daily previous structure here where I see sitting for the potential daily inversion and shoulders. So this can be then your shoulder 1, head, shoulder 2, impulse, potential correction A, B, C, potentially to that zone, or an impulse to the downside for going further to the downside. I don't expect the price will come and break this low immediately because we made a weekly shoulder 1 here, head, shoulder 2, the liquidity was taken. So what I expect is potential a correction or a big impulse till this previous structure, and then the price will slow down here, and then we can potentially make a move to the upside again. If I go now to the weekly, I have a 1 out of 4, which is okay for me. In my backtesting, I see 1 out of 4s with a pullback trade, a first time break. Trade is okay. And why I have 1 out of 4 is the supply and demand zone. If I put it here, a horizontal line, a blue line, you can see it's aligning with the big players where they sell. As you can see here, are sellers. False break, these are acting as sellers. When we are closing on it and we are closing just below on it, we can see the sellers kicking in. Then here acting as clear resistance, sellers kicking in. Here as resistance, sellers kicking in. Here when we are below it, sellers kicking in. Again here, nice touch, impulse. Then here sellers were kicking in, not that obvious, but then we acted here as small support, and then here again resistance back to the downside, and potentially we can have it here again short term. We don't know what will happen there, but for me it's a clear supply and demand zone that can hold the price potentially down. And if I look further back here, also sellers here, then yeah, here's support, support, weak support. So it's a supply and demand zone for me that is working for me. So 1 out of 4, the rest is against us because the FIB from this low till this high is in the FIB levels. Then the shoulder 1, head shoulder 2 can play against you with that weekly candle close, which is massively going and closing to the upside. And the trend can also be against you if you see this as your major bullish M, then it's also against you with that pattern aligning. So yeah, this can work against us. The daily was clear. We want to see a pullback trade, and on the 4 hour, what I'm waiting for is a potential deceleration. We have already the first candle, second candle, third candle isn't touching the decel box, but if we after that have the third candle, then I can set my limit, and the fourth candle will be triggered then, and we can go to the downside, or we can trade a pattern, which can be a first leg, second leg, third leg, fourth leg, bearish W to go to the downside. So this was my SMB Sunday market breakdown. I hope you liked it and see you next week. Bye.